I think that summarizes how I've been feeling after watching the episode pretty well. I feel like if you have a fiance and you've been together for, let's say, like about 3 years, and you're about to get married, and then, you know, a month before the wedding, they dump you and they cancel the wedding. Yeah, that's kind of what this episode made me feel like. Those of you who obviously had no idea what was going to happen, what was more shocking to you? Cersei's walk of shame, shame, or Jon being stabbed? Because honestly, I knew both of those things were going to happen. But the thing about Game of Thrones is that even though you know things are coming up, you're still never prepared. Let's start with Stannis. What an absolute shell of a man this person was. Half of his army bails on him. Melisandre just GTFOs. And then Selyse commits suicide. And this guy he ends up marching to Winterfell on foot. For somebody who had so much hope and so much going for him, this was an absolute fucking disgrace. Something I thought was really funny is that Brienne has spent most of the season staring, just not doing anything but staring at Winterfell. The moment she turns her back to go and kill Stannis, that's when Sansa lights the candle. All things considered, I thought she actually gave him a pretty decent death, and honestly, I couldn't stop myself from feeling a little bit bad for Stannis, because at the end, when he's up against that tree, you can tell from his face, he knew, before he died, he knew he fucked up. And at least he died displaying the one thing, the one trait that I thought was pretty admirable about him, which is his conviction. Not conviction for himself necessarily, but conviction about how things work and how things should work. That's why he tells Brienne, you're basically here to get a job done, so do it. It's kind of cool that it's Brienne who kills him and not some random Bolton soldier. I'm not really sure why they cut away from his death, though. What's poetic about this is that both the Baratheon candidates ended up killing each other, you know, through their servants. In other news, Theon actually does something to help Sansa out, finally. I have to admit, I did kind of like have a laugh when Miranda died, just because of the way that she was screaming all the way up till the end when she just hit the floor and it just stopped. She just wanted to be Katniss Everdeen for a day. I was surprised to learn that that corkscrew that Sansa grabbed earlier wasn't grabbed with the intention of killing or hurting anybody. She just wanted to use it to escape. Hopefully they ended up falling on a couple of feet of snow, because if not, I mean, think about it. They literally jumped the same distance that Miranda fell, only they were higher up. Something that I thought was really sad was when Sam and Gilly left the wall. Like, even the music they played, I think that's the King of the North soundtrack. But yeah, it was really sad because that's Jon's final friend, and he's saying goodbye because he knows that he's better suited to become a maester. And so it's kind of convenient, though, in a way, because it's like, yeah, if Sam had been there when Jon gets stabbed, he probably would have, I don't know, probably died as well. So Sam conveniently leaves, and then Melisandre conveniently arrives. And just remember that quote from Sam to Ollie in one of the previous episodes when he says, "Don't worry about Jon, Ollie. He always comes back." There's a brief discussion about White Walkers and whether or not they could get over the wall, but I'm like, they are ice zombies. Did you not see them jump off of a cliff and be just fine? What's going to stop them from coming together like crabs and form like a human ladder so that, you know, they can just walk up that way? Then again, there's also like a magical component to the wall because it was built by Bran the Builder with the help of the children and giants. Aside from Bronn being offered the bad pussy, it turns out that trip to Dorne wasn't entirely pointless after all, because for the first time, Jaime gets recognized as a father, and it was so touching, like the way that he was trying to tell her, but he couldn't, and she already knew all this time. It was really nice. I was like, damn, like that's some pretty nice character development for Jaime. And then I remembered what fucking show I was watching, and I was like, oh shit, wait a minute. You know, fatherly bonding moments always come with a price. Like first Shireen and now this. Now if you remember the way the season started with Maggie the Frog making that prophecy, it's heavily implied that she's saying that Cersei will outlive her children, right? So, Joffrey's gone, Marcella's done, the only one who's left is Tommen. I wonder if that's going to start a war between Dorne and the capital now that Cersei is pissed and has, you know, the Frankenstein mountain at her disposal. Anyway, Meereen was pretty simple this week. It's basically Daario and Jorah just going off to search for Daenerys, and Tyrion, Grey Worm, and Missandei staying behind, and then Varys shows up
with a pretty good quote. I mean, there's a lot of like really good dialogue sprinkled in between. I like Dario when he says, so basically all you do is talk, right? And Tyrion responds by saying, and drink! Varys says that Tyrion needs to learn which of his friends are not his friends. And I kind of wonder if Varys was hiding all this time in the shadows, just waiting for Daenerys and Dario and Jorah to leave so that he can talk to Tyrion alone, to get Tyrion to talk to Dany and just gain favor through her, like, with her that way. Daenerys, meanwhile, runs into some Dothraki, and that army is fucking huge. If she could get them on her side, I mean, after that, it's like, it's a one-way ticket to Westeros, I'm telling you. Then again, she needs that extra gym badge to be able to train Drogon properly, because right now, he's like Charizard. You know, she's Ash Ketchum, and it's like, she just lost the Pokemon League.
King's Landing, Littlefinger and the Tyrells are not in this episode, but we get Cersei.
I really liked the quote from the High Sparrow when he says, his sins do not pardon your own, because I think it's human nature to try and blame our own erroneous, poor decisions on other people that weren't necessarily doing the right thing. But then that haircutting scene, man, I've seen way too many Holocaust documentaries and movies for that shit to not ring the bell. I like how they show the Red Keep occasionally, you know, because that's the one thing that keeps her motivated because of Tommen. That's the one thing that she's focusing on. Because, I mean, honestly, humiliation is not a strong enough word to describe this shit. People showing their junk and shit, and like throwing stuff at her. The scene felt like it was going on forever, and I know that's the point. It's to make you feel uncomfortable. But I guess the question here is, how uncomfortable do you want to make viewers feel? It's funny because if you think about this season as a whole, before this episode, you could probably say that the nudity has been toned down. But then you get this shit, and it's like, God, okay, never mind.
Like I said, I knew this was going to happen, and it was absolutely disgusting. Shocking as hell. Props to Lena Headey. Because, you know, there's acting, and then there's this. Because even though, like, she's technically in character, she's not pretending to be walking down the street naked, being seen by hundreds of people, you know, getting thrown shit. Like, that's not something that she's pretending to do. I was thinking to myself, wait, if that's the punishment for sleeping with Lancel, what would the punishment be for sleeping with Jaime, which she didn't admit to, and having 3 kids with him?
Now let's talk about Arya. To me, this was my favorite scene of the episode. No question. The moment I saw that girl with the wig, and I didn't get to see her face, I'm like, okay, that's her. And then, of course, you know, it's obvious. She doesn't scream when she gets beaten. And then it's Valar Morghulis time, motherfucker. And she has, like, a systematic way of killing him. She starts with his eyes first. It reminded me of the way that Oberyn looked when, you know, he was getting his eyes squished in by the mountain. And I think it's because, like, she is destroying his face. She is destroying his identity. And then she flips the tables on him saying, you are nothing. You are no one. I am Arya Stark. So it's just like, all this time, it's like, she wanted to become a faceless man, not to become nobody herself, but to make everybody else, her enemies, nobody, or feel like nobody.
That scene when she finally slits his throat reminded me of the final scene of the Red Wedding, except it's kind of inverted, because Kat is numb in that scene by the end of it, and Arya is numb in the scene, but she's the one doing the cutting.
Of course, Jaqen finds that, and it looks like he kills himself, but then we find out that it's just kind of a way of letting her know that if you really become a faceless man, you kind of transcend death, because it doesn't really matter who you are. And then she becomes blind. It's supposed to be a very shocking thing, but in the book, it's actually just framed as something that needs to happen in order for her to keep training. Because if you think about it, like, what happens when you lose one of your senses? The other ones just kick in and they compensate for the one that you lost in a way. So your sense of smell is going to heighten up, your hearing is going to go up a notch, your touch, all that stuff, and a good assassin just cannot depend on sight alone. You can learn so much about people by just paying attention to their tone of voice, you know, whether it's a tone that's deceitful or truthful, you know, the way they walk, the way they smell, all those things are going to help Arya out.
And we go to Jon being stabbed to death. Obviously, super fucking depressing. The moment they cut to black and we get the credits, like, I don't think anybody was like, yeah, give me 5, Game of Thrones rocks. It's like, because Jon, throughout the season, like, he was basically like the MVP. Honestly, I think that it was Ollie who put everything together, and then Alistair Thorne was just like, okay, I guess that sounds like a good idea. Let's stab the guy. I didn't like how they used Benjen as an excuse. Ollie, it's kind of ironic that he's the one who shoots Ygritte, and then he's the one who ends up, like, you know, dealing the final blow to Jon. I thought it was a nice echo to Ned, because if you think about it, Jon kind of dies labeled as a traitor, just like Ned. And just like Ned, he died because he was trying to do the right thing. I've actually read some posts that people think that the way the blood looks on the snow kind of resembles a wolf howling. I don't know if that's intentional, but if it is, it's pretty cool. Thank you so much for sticking with me this season. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to do these videos. I'll be doing Game of Thrones related videos probably around the time where Winds of Winter comes out. If there's any other news that I think is relevant, I'll post videos about that. That's pretty much it. I cannot wait till season 6 to see Jon Snow revived. There's no fucking way they put in Melisandre back at the wall just to see Jon die. Like, and plus, Melisandre needs something to, like, reaffirm her faith, because she was totally broken after what happened with Stannis. So I think Jon Snow is the one to do it, and I think she's gonna revive him. But we'll see what happens. Thanks again. Like the video if you did. I appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel. Comment. Tell me your thoughts. Bye.